Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Plot Lines. I'm your host, Connor, and today back with me for I think it's the third time. Is it the third time, Robert?
I think so. Yes, I'm just trying to remember. I've been interviewed so many times; it's hard to keep track. But I have been following your work and your channel and the interviews, and I just think it's great to give you the encouragement. So it is.
I appreciate that. So, Robert Nugent, welcome back to the show. Your channel is Decrevi, Determined to be Catholic. First of all, how is everything going with the channel?
The channel is going fine. As I said in other podcasts, it is a pastime. I spend maybe a half an hour a day or an hour a day, depending on it. And I've done some other interviews where I've spent a whole day filming, but they're rare. So it's it's just a diary, really, a video diary for my kids in the end of the day that look back on these last number of years. And I try to do something, that's happening in my day, that's topical in the day. So that's really where the channel is going at the moment. And quite strange to see where it's landed up when I made no effort. This is what people fail to believe. I don't do it full time. It's not my main preoccupation. People think that I do that full time. No, I actually don't. I actually don't have any ministry in the church at all. I work full time in supply chain. Spend most of my day crunching numbers and programming and dealing with clients and scoping projects and stuff like this in a very different world, and then dealing with wife and kids, and then I do the blog.
You
But
have like the internet world, and then you have real world. You have the real world.
yes, I have the real world, the world we live in, the world of moving goods from A to B, of international trade. Um,
Are you an
yeah,
international man of mystery?
no, I've worked for 23 years in a global in I've worked for 23 years in a global company, doing a lot of work with customers, supply chain. Um, and different projects, and I try to keep my private work out of my
Oh
my
yeah,
my blogging, because that you
they're
know I
separate.
they're separate, and
Yes.
one, and I made but I do enjoy my work. I enjoy my work because it exposes me to a very international group of people. I work with Hindus and Muslims and Jews and Arabs and Christians, Orthodox and Armenians, and the whole everyone. It's quite amazing, and you build up a lot of friendships and relationships with these people from around the world that are dear friends. Worked with them for many years, so I suppose that exposure has helped me. And it's amazing how many non-Catholics will ask you about your faith and what does it mean and so forth. And so it's been a beautiful a couple of decades working in that international scene, traveling in Africa and Asia, America, South America, Europe, uh, basically all over the world.
Is that how
So that
you prepared for your uh surprising calling?
um,
Interacting with all these people and them asking you
yeah,
about your faith.
yeah, it actually did, because in the business world, you meet people with faith. If you go to Egypt or to the Middle East, you will find your work colleagues. They will pray 5 times a day. That you might go into their office and they have a mat out and they're praying. So they will pray 5 times a day. So uh, that experience of their faith will challenge you. And how many of us Catholics will say, oh, well, stop and pray the Angelus, or how many will stop and pray the Rosary. You know a few years ago, I got a tattoo of the Jesus prayer in my arm. And so many times in conversations, people will ask, what does it mean? And I said, well, this prayer means an incredible amount to me. And we strike up a conversation about that prayer. And I think I think it's beautiful to have that discussion, that talk, and to see people's lives, their families, their you know their way of viewing the world and their way of viewing religion, and they're fascinated by my views of my faith. And I suppose it is being it's an exposure that not many people have, you
Mhm.
know, because I'm exposed to all cultures, to many religions, to lots of languages. I speak, as I said, I speak Spanish, Italian, Polish. I can read pretty well, fluently Portuguese, French. I'd be okay, for example, with Russian and Greek, either modern Russian and modern Greek, and also ancient Greek, and I also can read Latin. So I have a wide preparation, a very strange wide preparation, both from my seminary days and then from my business days. So it's just that vast network of interacting with different cultures is and religions is a fascinating world, so it is. And it makes you want to understand better your own faith and your own religion and your own tradition, Catholic tradition. Are so that's kind of really, it's in a strange way where the business world has made me more Catholic,
Hmm.
because you know, you have to, well, what do you believe in? You know, what do we actually believe in? Because people will ask me, what is your faith? If you meet a Sikh, you know, you need to understand, well, okay, what's their faith? What does the turban mean? What does the sword mean? What does the bangle mean? Or if you meet a Hindu, understand their religion, their dietary requirements, why, how they eat, or a Muslim, why they wouldn't shake hands with a woman. You know, we have all of this kind of training in the business world, how to greet a Japanese person, how to understand their culture, what to do, not because we get all of this cultural training as well. People don't, for in the business world, you
Mhm.
when you're going to a country, you will get kind of cultural training, the do's and not to do's. And so it's just a fascinating world to understand, you know, how to give a present in Japan and how to treat people, and you know, it just the whole gambit of the world is a fascinating, it has been a fascinating life. I really have had a fascinating life, you know, going from um, South Africa or Swaziland to America. And so, you know, the company has been incredibly. I mean, they've formed me in many ways to be able to operate in that international environment. And
The world traveler.
the world traveler, yes, the world traveler. I've really have been graced to have been around the world with that. So it's been an incredible pleasure and fortune for me. So it has.
Well, you recently were in Medjugorje, right?
I was there last week in Medjugorje in Herzegovina, in Bosnia Herzegovina. Well, Bosnia Herzegovina split in two, so we're in the Herzegovina side, which is the Croat side. So yeah, I
Oh,
was there
I,
last week.
I never actually knew why it's called both, and I did not know that there was a specific sort of line drawn
Mm.
between So Herzegovina is the west,
Herzegovina is
northwest.
the west, and then Bosnia is kind of the other side of it. So
I mean, it's not that
one,
big, anyways.
no, but it's I mean, the whole Balkans and the whole jigsaw of the Balkans is very, very, very complex. And, you know, my family, as I blogged about before, we have a long connection to that region. We've been going to the Balkans for the last 400 years. So, it's kind of strange that every, you know, history repeats itself time and again. And I mean, the last Nugent in our family that lived in that region in Tresat Castle was Countess Anna Nugent, and she died just after World War II. So she ended the Nugent presence there, and obviously with the advent of communism, uh, the properties were removed from the family. But
Mm.
it's interesting to go back there and to that same region that other people in our family have lived and seen and experienced that culture. I mean, Nugent's previous to myself would have spoke the language of that region fluently.
Hmm.
Uh, were part of the Illyrian movement, the independence movement in Croatia in the 1800s. So it's I just find the whole region fascinating. Actually, my cousin Prince Lavelle Nugent, he wanted to found a Franciscan town in that region at the time, but it didn't come to fruition. But something else popped up, because I don't know if people are aware. There's a house. There's this shrine called Loreto in Italy, where the house of that which contains the house of the Virgin, and tradition has it that that house stopped in Croatia. So there's actually a shrine there.
Did you say
uh,
he's a prince?
he was Croatian prince by Pope Pius VII after he liberated Rome from Napoleonic forces. So with the defeat of Murat in the Battle of Magano in 1817, something like this.
Are there any good books about him?
Well, we have in our own family, yes, we have it, but it's mostly in Italian. I have a few books. I'd love to do a book in English. There's lots of, because he was an Austrian general, and there's lots of literature in German and in Italian, but there's I suppose it has to come together to put together actually an English book. So it might be a project I'll do later.
Yeah, you have something to do. Just another thing to
I
add on to
know.
your...
The thing is with him, he's specifically from my family, the town where my family grew up, which is my father's family grew up in a place called Delvin in Meath, and he's from one side of the town, and my father's family is from another side of the town, like literally 15 minutes apart from each other. So we were the same family. So that's why I was always interested in what the Nugents did from that part of Ireland. Yeah, no, it's interesting the different history, because our family fought in Hastings, Battle of Hastings. Our family fought in the Crusades. Our family were in the, defeated Napoleon's brother-in-law in just outside of Naples, and we were the governors of Prague in Czech Republic.
You're just everywhere, aren't you?
We're just everywhere. It's just fascinating to see how history and stuff like that. And
isn't there something like, isn't there a name for like that, like Irish that have been all over the place, like something like geese?
We weren't in the wild geese, no, because we weren't an Irish family. We were a Norman family.
Oh, right. But then
Yeah.
when did you become an Irish family?
We became more Irish than the Irish themselves. So this was what happened with the Normans when they came to Ireland. They became a threat to they became a threat to the king, because we became more Irish than the Irish themselves. So what our cousins used to do, over in England, our relations, to stop us rebelling, they used to take us over as wards to England. So the Nugents would be kept as wards until they were in their early 20s in England. So you have all this history of our family, eldest sons of our family, being taken to England as wards of the Tudors, who were our cousins. Elizabeth I would have referred to us Nugents as her cousins, which we were. I mean, that's just the fact.
So you're basically royalty. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, we descend from the kings over 1,000 years ago in France, from that region, from Normandy. So we were all of these families were related, and all of these families, we would have come from the House of Belem, which was the original name. Now, when we came to Ireland, we kept where we were from. So we were de Nugent, so we were from Nugent, that area,
Mm.
but our house name was Belesme or Belem, um, back in the day. So that's the history of the family. Now there's thousands of Nugents today, but that's where you could trace your we can trace our lineage back there, and we do keep those stories alive because they are interesting. You know, it's fascinating just to see where different Nugents have been over the centuries. You know, there was even in Monte Cassino, in that famous Battle of Monte Cassino, there was a Nugent there. I looked it up, and he's buried in Monte Cassino. And 100 years before that, there was another Nugent fighting in that same place. So it's just
Just
it's fascinating
got to
to
be a
see it.
Nugent in every battle. I think we have to have that pretty much for the last centuries.
Yeah, yeah,
There has to be a Nugent in pretty much every battle. Make sure you know them. Make sure you
yeah,
spot them. Well, this works perfectly into the main topic. We haven't really gotten to the main topic of today's
yeah.
episode, but I want to talk about sort of the state of Ireland as a whole, and does it still mean the same thing? Does Ireland still mean the same thing as it did when it was gained independence from the British? Because
Yeah.
what I sort of understand, from my understanding, is of the what the Irish wanted when they gained independence. They wanted Ireland for the Irish. I mean, there's a famous Wings song, I think, about give Ireland back to the Irish. I know that's about Northern Ireland, but still.
Yeah.
And then Catholic, because that's what Southern Ireland was, and Protestantism had always been associated with uh, the British, right?
So okay, there was I mean, there's a long story on Irish history, but there was there was a series of plantations into Ireland, and these plantations happened, in various locations. Mostly, there was a large plantation in Ulster, but there was also plantation of people in the east of Ireland, in the Pale area, or around Dublin, Meath, and that area. So there was successive plantations of people that brought in. I suppose the big issue, I mean, and you could condense this down, was with the Reformation, with Henry VIII. What he did was, and that legacy really did, mark Ireland forever, because not only before that we were all Catholic, we were all one religion as such, but with him proclaiming himself as the head of the church, and with the Protestant Reformation, then you had a division of religion on the island. So that division of religion also became a division in nationality, really. So on one side we had Catholic nationalist, and the other side British, today British,
Unionist.
unionist. Now those identities have become more marked in recent times, but in the early 1800s, everybody on the island of Ireland would have called themselves Irish, Protestant and Irish. We would have all, and I suppose the hope was, what Ireland was looking for was home rule. This is what Daniel O'Donnell and others were looking for: home rule. And our original flag, well, our present day flag, the tricolour, is a flag that was supposed to unite all of Ireland, both planter and the Gael. It was orange, white, and green. Orange being symbolising the Protestant tradition in Ireland, the green the Catholic tradition, and peace between both of them. And this was the hope, the what ultimately happened to in Ireland really was a failure. I mean, if you were to read back through history, it really was a failure. If the 1916 rising, if that had waited another 10 years, or another 15 years, Ireland would have ended up like Canada or New Zealand or Australia, an island that would have slowly drifted away from the UK. It really would have. But I suppose that rebellion in the 1916 really did force Britain and created the division that we have in Ireland. You know, with the Protestant section in the north staying close to the United Kingdom, and the southern becoming a free state and then a republic. So, I mean, identity is a very fraught issue in Ireland in many ways, because, as I said, Protestants in the 1800s would have considered themselves Irish. Along anybody on the island would have considered themselves Irish. That was their identity, the same as anybody living in Scotland considered themselves Scottish, or people living in Wales consider themselves Welsh, or England English, and all of a sudden, really since the partition of Ireland, then identities became, a lot more problematic. Now, I'm going to be very delicate about this topic, because my family has both Protestants and Catholics. So, I come from both sides of that spectrum in Ireland. So,
have you heard the song "The Biggest Mix-Up"?
No.
Oh, it's just a funny Irish song, or well, I think it's an Irish song. I mean, it could be. It's at least a folk song, whether or not it's actually from Ireland or not. It's just about a child being born from both having a Protestant father and a Catholic mother, and he's basically torn. His father treats him like a Protestant, his mother treats him like a Catholic, and basically he has to go to everything. And I think they even call him different names too. Like I think to his dad he's William, and to his father or to mother he's Patrick, I think.
Okay.
Anyways, the whole point is just how messy it is.
Yeah. But I mean, there are some mixed marriages like that, but at the end of the day, there has to be a level of respect. We have to arrive to a level of respect, and that's really what happened with the Good Friday Agreement. We had to sit down and actually talk to each other.
That was just that was mainly Northern Ireland, right?
No, the Good Friday Agreement had to be voted on by the whole island.
Oh, okay.
So we had clauses in our constitution which laid claim to the 6 counties of the north. So we had to change our constitution. So we had a referendum, and they had a vote in the north. So the Good Friday Agreement was voted on overwhelmingly by the whole island, and had to be, so that we could change. We had to relinquish claim to the north in our constitution, which we did, and then the north had to pass the agreement, which, if the majority in Northern Ireland wanted to unite with the south, that could happen. That there is a mechanism for that to happen. So there is a mechanism for Irish unity at some stage, if there is a majority in the north that wants that. So there's it was it was a long time to come to that, but as I said, I think if we could go back in history, and if we'd waited 15 years to 1930s, the whole island would have become maybe a similar to New Zealand, Australia, and Canada. It would have become its own dominion, and later on, like other countries, we would have removed the crown as the head of state and replaced it with the president, like so many other former
like already
British.
was. Well, I mean even the Free State was originally had
Correct.
had the crown,
The king.
king.
Correct. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
when the abdication happened of in
Edward
1930.
the
Yeah, yeah. So that
something.
was, yeah.
Okay,
So
that's when that happened. So, anyways, it's interesting, but from what I understand, the Constitution of Ireland had a lot of Catholic elements in it.
well, it has the preamble. So if you read the preamble to the Irish Constitution, it's pretty much Catholic,
Okay.
Um, but it's I mean it's been liberalized to such an extent that anybody can get married, and abortion and so forth. So um,
Well,
and
yeah,
next,
that's kind of what I want to talk about is the fact that like does Ireland really know what Ireland is anymore? Like what is Ireland? Is it sort of a low tax
yeah,
liberal I don't know, like uh basically like it is it New York?
yeah, it
Well,
is.
actually New
It,
York is high tax. That's not even what I don't even know what a low tax city would be, but maybe Miami. Is it Miami?
oh, I mean, we're not. I mean, it's like a sandwich of the English American system, and that's simply the truth of it. It is, in a sense, an unofficial state of the United States in many ways, as regards
My
economics.
condolences.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of American companies invested in here is not small. It's highly significant, and and everybody knows that it's because of our low tax and our pro business um, culture. So the Irish government will bend over backwards to get anybody to employ in here, which they did very successfully over decades.
Yeah,
Uh,
and from what I understand is also immigration is ramping up. Is that
Yeah. So with the EU movement of free the movement of the free movement of people, there has been a lot of immigration as the EU has expanded, and with Ukraine, really, we had the largest influx of immigrants ever in one year that we've ever seen in the history of the country. That's the truth of it. Not even the British during their plantation did that level of immigration in one so quickly and so fast. So that happened over the past year, and then we've had a lot of uh, we've just had a massive influx of people into to immigration centers from all around different places around the world. And I'm not trying to sound any note of xenophobia whatsoever here, but even our prime minister has said, the compassion has limits, economical limits. Paraphrasing what he said, but there's the realization, you know, we are a small country. We're a small country, 5 million people, and the world is 7 billion people. We are not able to have unlimited immigration, so there has to be some way of controlling that. And also, when you flood a country with people with a completely
culture,
different culture and so forth.
religion,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just beside us, I mean, I'm just stating the news, the facts here. I'm not casting a judgment, but beside us, and literally 40 minutes from where I live, a Muslim man was going out finding gay men and killing them. You know,
interesting.
yeah. So, in the one town, he'd look them up on an app. They'd arrange to meet, and he'd kill them.
I have a
That
sneaky suspicion that the prime minister wouldn't be happy with that, e-
no.
especially with the current prime minister.
Yeah, well, this is what when you have a clash of cultures. It's like when two weather systems meet, a cold and a hot one. You're going to have storms. So when you bring in a massive influx of people from it with a different culture, um, it can create problems. Now, there has been some lot of good healthy immigration, like we have a very large Syro Malabar Indian Catholic
Catholic, yeah.
community. There's a shrine near us, Knock, and you always see them there, and they've been a very enriching community in Ireland. You know, they've been like they really have in their reverence for their faith and the reverence for the mass. They have a beautiful ad orientem ancient rite, you know. So it's when I saw them in our basilica near here, and it was just really incredible. And you always see them dressed, their priests dressed as priests. You know, they really do reverence their liturgy. So it's great to see that community in Ireland, and they have a great catechesis program. You know, so it's not all. You know, it does challenge people, especially when, you know, Ireland en masse has apostatized the Catholic faith. I mean,
Mhm.
it is
Well,
pronounced.
that's one element of not, Ireland built on mostly, I would say, mostly Catholic, Irish, and don't like the British. But now they've lost basically the Catholic element, and by immigration they're kind of losing the Irish part of it.
No,
Um,
immigration has nothing to do with the loss of the faith.
no, no, no. I'm talking about the Irish part.
Yeah,
No, I'm not talking about the Catholic part. I'm saying the Catholic part went away because of apostatization.
yeah,
I'm saying if Ireland is overflowed with immigrants,
yeah,
then the Irish part will go away because multiculturalism just kind of, I mean, from just uh when you have this flux, then
yeah,
people don't assimilate, and then you have this
yeah,
you basically have cultures that morph into one really banal culture that
yeah,
isn't worth much.
yeah,
The I think one of the things we need to sort of uh um I guess put separately. So there's enriching cultural engagement where
yeah.
you have, as you said, the Syro Malabar. You have, I imagine it's not that big of a community, but it's an
Several
active.
thousand.
Okay, yeah, but
Yeah,
it's sort of it brings something interesting
yeah,
to Ireland, and then there's just massive flux, which
yeah,
basically would take over Ireland. And
yeah,
you want to have the first thing, but you don't want to have the second thing. And
yeah,
there, there was, you mentioned the Muslim man, and then the Algerian migrant who's stabbed a woman and children at uh, a
in Dublin.
primary school.
Yeah,
So, like, there are these negatives to immigration that, if basically the reaction to somebody having these concerns are, accusing someone of being xenophobic, you lose the ability to critique the
yeah,
negative.
yeah. I mean, I'm just saying, government policy should be very cautious in this area, because, especially when you have a lot of pressures on your local country and other areas like housing, affordable housing, um, employment sometimes, and so forth. You know, the people are going to feel aggrieved, and this mightn't rightly be so, but they will feel aggrieved. Oh, I can't get a house, and these people walk in and they're given, they're given everything. And that, I'm just this is the rhetoric that you hear in Ireland, and I mean, for the protection of people coming into Ireland as well, as not just for everyone, because there are some elements in society that just doesn't think, and you get whipped up into a frenzy, and that doesn't help anybody in the long run. Do you know what I mean? So that's why it's we have to be very careful with this whole area, and really the government is failing in that aspect in Ireland, because they don't see anything wrong here. They just think, oh, it's all going to be fine. But when you create pockets of people that don't speak English, that have their own cult. They live in Ireland, but they don't. They're not. They have no.
They're not really Irish.
Irish, no. So, like for example, we had a large influx of Eastern Europeans into Ireland, Romanians, Polish, Lithuanians, basically, the whole of the Eastern, even Ukrainians. But after 20 years, you have the second generation of Eastern Europeans in Ireland, and the second generation are speaking English, or duolingual. They're
Do they have the
doing
accent?
they are exactly like any other Irish person. The
Mm.
accent, the sports, I mean, because they're going to secondary schools. They are they're just they learn the language, the integration, and so forth. So that's I mean, my wife is Polish here, so I have to be, and so I know this community very extremely well in Ireland.
Well,
And
married if every immigrant were to marry a Irish person,
yeah,
that would be a completely different, sort of
yeah, but you see,
costume.
European culture, if you think about it, European culture isn't that massive divide as some people think. Our continent. I mean, we've been intermarrying for centuries in a way. So it
Wasn't that
isn't
mostly
like
the royalty though? Not really the
no, 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 no.
eh,
I mean, it's not as much, but I mean, there was it. The, uh, it wasn't that much, but it was a the culture in Europe, how would I say it? Uh, Religion has a big part to play in it, especially when it comes from a Christian side. So the religion would have really separated people from getting married. Like Muslims generally wouldn't have married outside their religion. The same with Jews.
mhm.
Whereas Catholics generally, depending, like if you were an English Catholic or an Irish Catholic, or would you would have married, probably would have married together. And that the largest ethnic group as such in Britain was Irish at certain period. So it's very, very interesting that the whole this whole phenomenon as such, at the end of the day, because there has been successive waves of immigration across Europe, and people. The Celts came from what would be modern day the
France.
Galicia area. No, no,
Wait, where Galicia?
Turkey,
Turkey. Wait.
Turkey, Middle East.
Oh yeah, yeah. I know. Asia
Yeah,
Minor.
so when St. Paul is writing to the
That's true.
Galicians, he's writing to the Celts.
Yes, and
So
then they made it all the way to
to
well,
Ireland. Yeah, you have Celtic settlements all across Europe. So as they moved across to the last 1,000 to 2,500 years, you have those settlements.
I was just
And
thinking about when they had stopped because wasn't Gaul Celtic?
yes, and
So that's what I
northern
was thinking.
Spain. Yeah, so all the Western Europe would have been like Galicia, and Brittany, Breton. I'm nearly sure.
Yeah, Brittany
Um,
is Celtic, yeah,
yeah, yeah. So
or was.
Scotland. Yeah, and a lot of the British Isles, but then you would have had successive waves of immigration from Denmark and the
Mhm.
Vikings, uh,
Anglo-Saxons.
Anglo-Saxons, the Normans, and so
Yeah.
forth. So
Yeah, no, I mean, there's definitely that, but, like, it even, like, with the Normans, that was mostly the aristocracy, right, that,
uh,
transferred?
well, yes, there was the aristocracy, but there was also Norman families that came over, and religious. So, and you can see this how in the right of the right of the liturgy, in the early Celtic church, that if you ever see these chalices, there were large bowls like this, a large chalice like this, because they would have used them with the body and the blood to give out communion.
Hmm.
That would, which would be similar to the Orthodox, and then with the advent of the French Norman side and serious, the influence from France,
Hmm.
we saw the liturgy becoming more
Roman.
Western. Yeah, yeah,
Rome.
more Western European. So it's just fascinating when you look at the different eras, how the liturgy changed. So there was a lot of influence from French monks, and I know this because in my family there happened to be abbots in some of the monasteries around our area, and Fore Abbey, a Benedictine abbey, the last abbot was William Nugent, and we actually still have his crozier, his Benedictine crozier. It's in the National Museum in Ireland, and if we look at the history there was a lot of mixing between France and Ireland. Even during the penal times, a lot of priests would have went abroad to get formed in these locations. So, there was a lot of back and forth of peoples between countries. It's just the way it's just
Oh
the
yeah,
fact
well,
of it.
in that's what I mean. I guess that's I mean, to some degree, that wouldn't have been a very enjoyable experience for some groups.
Yeah,
Uh,
no,
when that happened. And that I
no,
mean, I don't think it's preferable to have like, if you're Anglo-Saxon, I don't think it's preferable for you to have a giant influx of Normans
yeah,
taking over your country. Like, and that was literally them taking over the country. It wasn't even like, just, "Oh, we're just moving here." No, it
yeah,
was they literally became, king of England.
yeah,
And
yeah,
a lot of the lords were, now had lots of land in England. So
yeah,
I it's yes, it's an example of like all those things have happened,
yeah,
but it's not preferable to have it actually shows that it's not entirely preferable to have mass influx
yeah,
at one
yeah,
time, especially if you want to preserve cultures. Like if you want
yeah,
an actual diversity of cultures, you actually want to keep cultures separate to some degree,
yeah,
because otherwise
yeah,
they'll just become one monoculture. This is why globalization is quite dangerous, because if you want everybody to become American, which I certainly don't want everyone to become American, and even in America, I don't want to become like California. I don't want to
yeah,
become like New York. I want to stay sort of. I would prefer things to stay as Californians can stay Californians. Like Florida's
yeah,
crazy. Like all these different states have their own sort of culture, even as an iteration of American culture.
yeah,
And Ireland's so small. You don't want to lose that. It's I was talking to Gavin Ashenden, and he's basically saying that like you just need to buy English books because English culture is basically going to be dead in the next 50 years.
yeah. Yeah, I
So
mean this is happening all over the world. We see this massive change in culture. I mean, as people are exposed to ideas and languages, and a video can reach the whole world in a few seconds today. I mean that changes the way people think, the way people see the world. Um, and how do you stop that? It's going to be a very interesting point. But I suppose from the Catholic Christian point of view, you know um Christ came, he said, and he gave us a message to give to all nations. If we couldn't travel, you wouldn't have a Christian, you wouldn't be able to evangelize.
yeah, well, that's the
And
thing. So, like, in my opinion, the message you should get from these types of videos should be, you know, baptize your culture.
yeah,
But that doesn't mean like you need to lose all of your culture. It just means obviously there are certain things that had to go
yeah,
away with paganism and stuff like that when pagans converted to Catholicism. But and there's a lot that was retained and just baptized.
Yeah, but the way to baptize your culture, the way to bring that faith into your culture is love. It's been that radicality of the gospel. If you think about Mother Teresa of Calcutta, she was able to really baptize a culture. She had so many Hindu converts, people that became Christian by her ability to actually baptize that culture. And she took on the sari, the symbol, this lady that was veiled, with a typical Hindu garment. And yes, she was able to, she died with state honors. She got an Indian state funeral. I mean,
I
and
did
people
not know
just,
that last part.
yeah, she had a state funeral.
That's
She had a
impressive.
she is one of the most beloved figures in India. I mean, that's the truth of it. I wouldn't say there's anybody that doesn't know who she is in India, because
And
she
that's
was
a lot of
able to.
people.
That's a lot of people. That's a billion people.
Yeah.
If you think about what was her core message I mean, this frail old woman, what was her core message was the poorest of the poor. To attend to the poorest of the poor. And these were people that Hindus would have ignored. The dying person on the street, because their culture believed in karma. Oh, you're on the street and you're poor. Well, you must have done something in the past life, so you poor
And they
things
believe in
suffer.
reincarnation, so, the
Yeah,
person's just gonna come back as, a donkey or something.
exactly. And
So
yet, we don't believe in that. We don't
mhm.
believe. We believe in that Christ is the way, the truth, and the life in our life today. So she was able as an immigrant. Now, if you think about it, Mother Teresa, an Albanian, were born in Macedonia, but an immigrant, an immigrant to Ireland. She got her formation here. An immigrant to India, and she was literally able to, as that one woman, to baptize a culture, to actually literally baptize that culture in her own way, in her, just dealing with the people she did. And the people became Christian by her following her way of love. And that is the only way we're ever going to preach the gospel in this world, is
Yeah.
is with that, is if we're not radically transformed in love, we will never be able to open people's hearts to the beauty of the gospel. So with the globalization and the immigration and all this, we can't look backwards to the way things were in years to come, because we're never going to go back. We do live in a globalized culture, whether we like it or not. And building a wall and blocking the culture, it's just not going to happen again. I know there is this in America. There was that thing, but
Oh, no, no
you're
building the wall.
yeah,
Actually,
but
Biden participated in that, I'm pretty
I
sure.
know. But at
So,
the end of the day, your largest culture in your largest culture in America is the Latino culture.
I don't think it's
Um,
the largest culture. I think it it has the potential to be, but it's not
oh, it
currently.
is. After say the English speak, it's the second largest spoken language is Spanish in America.
No,
Um,
yeah, and I know that. I
yeah,
just mean like there's, because I'm saying the second largest. They're not the largest.
yeah.
That's
Well, if you were to ask what's the largest spoken language after English in
Oh,
America, it
well,
would be
yes, but
Spanish.
I
Yeah,
mean, like, I'm saying, yeah. Well, a lot of also Latinos, a lot of them have lost their Spanish.
yeah,
Like, I
yeah.
know some that don't speak it.
To speak at all.
Um,
Yeah,
and but also I would say, like, when you mentioned Mother Teresa, and there's a lot of saints that have gone to a lot of different countries. I
yeah.
don't think they count as the same way as like with standard immigrants. Like, if a priest and a nun come over like to a country, yes, they're going to have an impact, but they also basically living the life of poverty. They're not, or at least close to it. A priest
Yeah,
probably would live lesser, or not as impoverished as maybe a nun or a monk,
yeah,
but they're literally giving them of themselves instead of
yeah,
like, because if you think of like what happens with social services these days, because actually, if anything, the nuns and the priests are actually almost acting as social services
Yeah.
when they come over, while like everybody else would be, maybe some of them would be in need of social services. So it's quite interesting. But are you familiar with Conor McGregor?
Yes.
Have you seen the possibility of him running for president of Ireland?
He would be the absolute worst president ever for Ireland.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
Why?
because why? Because the problem is this boomerang or slingshot or reactionary votes do nothing for countries. If
What do you mean?
Because he's got no political preparation. So and a president for Ireland, he would be just a puppet. He would have zero ability to actually influence Irish politics. So I know president, the office president in the States has a lot of power.
What does the president of Ireland do? Actually, that's a great way to
Nothing.
start. Oh, okay.
Nothing. He's a puppet. He's just a figurehead. So the government decides he cannot. He can send legislation to be scrutinized. He signs off in legislation and so forth, but he can do absolutely nothing.
Can he
So
veto? He can't veto.
he can veto, but it can't stop legislation. He can just. He, I mean. Yeah, but he can veto it, but it has to go to it just be legal challenged and stuff like that. So there's very little that
The president can do.
I mean, if Conor McGregor was to run for Taoiseach or for member of Parliament, that might be something interesting.
Would he be good at that, or would you? What do
No, I
you think
wouldn't vote for him. I
Okay.
wouldn't vote for him at all because
Okay.
his career is fighting.
Mhm.
He doesn't have any academia. He doesn't have any political preparation. You know, that's simply my personal view on him. Not that I follow him that much, in the
But
sense
isn't
that
democracy basically a popularity contest?
it is a popularity contest, but at the end of the day, you have to vote for. You have to weigh up the people that you're putting in office. Are they actually capable of governing our country?
Are there any
Um,
good parties in Ireland?
no,
Okay,
no,
then, but like,
no.
wait, but if there aren't any good parties in Ireland to vote for, I mean, I'd rather throw my if I was in your situation, I'd rather throw my vote towards this to just a random guy who doesn't who maybe isn't as
Yeah,
ideologically aligned.
I mean, if you look at President Donald Trump when he ran for president, and you take out the ideological side and you just look at the business side and his manifesto. So he said, "I'm not going to go to war, and I'm going to be pro-business, and I'm going to try and work with regulations." Like he had a lot of. I'm leaving out the Republican, the Democrat labels here, but he had a lot of sensible policies.
Okay.
So he wasn't going to massively rock the boat in America. He was calling out NATO. Why is America spending so much on NATO and the others aren't stepping up? It was like common sense, practical business politician, And at the end of the 4 years, he did deliver what he didn't cause utter chaos in America. I'm
Well,
sorry. I
social
mean, and
chaos.
I mean, the left hated him, absolutely
Yeah,
hated the guy.
exactly.
But on paper, uh, he had the ability to lead. Now, whether you think he was a good or a bad leader, he had some good policies.
Hmm.
So when you're voting for somebody to come in, like the likes of Conor McGregor, who has no history of leadership at all, zero. He has never had a leadership position. He's just won fights, but he's never actually had a leader. He hasn't governed a company or managed a company or managed people. No, this guy would be
No.
the worst politician. He might get in, but then you mess up the role that you're in, because you find that politics, you have to work with other people, you have to get a consensus, and you have to manage the stability of a country. In the sense because if you make such drastic changes, and it'll be interesting to see what Milei does in Argentina, because he's going to face an incredibly difficult task in trying to reform that country. And you could have a lot of social unrest. So yeah, it's great that we have these things like, let's vote this person in, but what would be the consequences for our country?
Okay. Well, I think I have a great question as a follow up. If it does seem like Conor McGregor would like to help Ireland, he
Yeah.
what would you suggest if you could make a suggestion to him? What suggestion would you make? Because he is very popular. He's a very popular uh,
Yeah.
figure. Would it be something like a supporting a actual person that could do the job, or like what kind of suggestion would you make?
I mean, he's popular. So yeah, he's popular. He's popular because he was a sports figure. I mean, I to be honest, I, 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 I would think it would be just a sad day for Ireland if the guy was elected. I'm just saying that
What if
because he had,
what were kings, if some of them, if not like warlords?
they were prepared.
Okay,
Kings were prepared.
not
So if you were
well. I'm
brought,
talking about early kings. I'm not talking about like 12th century. I'm talking like 600s, 700s. Like I wouldn't.
yeah, well, if you look at my cousin, that went on to defeat the King of Naples, Joachim Murat. He was formed by his uncle since he was a child. He went to the Theresium in Austria, in Vienna.
Yeah, but wasn't that the 1800s?
Yeah,
1700s?
but
I'm talking about like.
this is how leaders were formed. This is how you win a battle, is from that preparation across your life on the different skills, the diplomacy. Like he would have met with Wellington in
Mhm,
Spain. He would have met with all of these different players around Europe of his time, in order to strategically do what he needed to do to, with the support of the Habsburgs, with the support of the Bourbons, with the support of the British the royal family, the British Parliament, and so he had this wide network of diplomacy across Europe, and he had and from a child he was formed into that position. When you have somebody that is just throwing punches,
mhm.
I'm just saying, I don't know too much about this man's life, but you're just throwing punches, but you haven't had that preparation. It's very, my cousin could wield a sword. He grew up wielding a sword. He knew how to fight, physically fight, which, but he also knew how to be diplomatic. He knew how to speak several languages, and he knew how the world works and how people worked. That's the type of preparation you need. And if you're going to step into a leadership role, you just can't be one dimensional as a politician. Donald Trump, whether people liked him or not, he wasn't this one dimensional man.
They
You know,
tried to paint him as that, though.
boy, he wasn't.
Yeah,
He
no,
wasn't.
you're right. You're right.
He was a he'd speak about alcoholism, and he don't drink, don't take drugs. This, of all the politicians, he'd be the first. Now he had a problem with women and sex. This was his downfall, and but he wasn't a one-dimensional person, and he was calling out the common sense leadership things, and he was able to network. I'm just saying, that's
Yeah, he didn't have though he didn't have a lot of political experience. That might have been one of his biggest downfalls, of course, not knowing who his
yeah,
enemies were.
yeah,
And you're totally spot on the ideal, right? Like
yes.
I'm 100. It's not. I'm not disagreeing with you on the ideal. I just think the world has gone to crap, and
I think,
I'm
yeah,
saying like what do you guys do now? I don't want Ireland to go to die, like, and I'm just saying he doesn't want Ireland to die either, and
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
there's
I know it.
something to that.
But what? But okay, but dig under the skin and see what he stands for.
Well, that
You
will
know
be
what?
interesting. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
It will be
you
at
know,
least interesting. I just appreciate that somebody's trying to sort of because he's, as I said, he's very popular. He's at least saying like, you guys aren't doing a very good job. I really do. You're probably right. He probably can't do a
yeah,
much better job. At least maybe he won't do as terrible job though in
yeah.
some malice sense, because it seems like the Irish politicians have malice to their own people.
I, do you know what? I just think they're the typical Europe. Okay, you have to remember Ireland is part of the EU, so most of our laws and most of our policies are not passed by Irish politicians anymore.
Yeah,
They're
think
passed in Brussels.
they're
Yeah.
basically you're basically a subjugated nation.
Exactly. You know, the BS that we get landed with is, oh no, we have international obligations, and we're just going to wipe our backside off here and pass it up the chain. It's like the sooner the Ireland leaves the EU, the better, in my opinion, because at least we'll take back some local responsibility for our own governance, and
What
then I mean, but
what if he does that?
he won't do that. He
Okay.
won't do that.
I
You
just
know, he
What if that's his
doesn't
one
like
campaign?
he doesn't have political. He doesn't have
I'm
the
just saying
political
what
stamina.
ifs.
No, I mean, at least if he'd run a business or he knew how to,
Is it
if he has
possible he's
any,
at least run a business regarding his own
no,
fights? Because,
no,
like, no,
no,
no, no. I'm
I-
I'm just wondering because, like, at this point, like, there's a lot of a lot of people in these sort of, like Taylor Swift's kind of a good example of that. Like, I mean, not that I would want Taylor Swift running a country, anyways, but like, she's actually quite savvy in her industry. So
yeah,
I wonder if there might be something to that. I don't know how because like as things have become more sort of
yeah,
technologically helpful, people tend to run their stuff more locally instead of getting wrapped up with like, agents and stuff like that, and getting
yeah.
that type of thing. So I don't know, but either
The,
way,
the,
is
yeah.
there somebody that you that
Michael O'Leary. Michael O'Leary. If
who's
Michael
Michael
O'Leary.
O'Leary? Who is that?
Oh, you don't know who Michael O'Leary is?
I, I do not. Who is that?
Oh my gosh, I'm going to inform you. Well, anybody that's Irish will know he is. He's a billionaire. He runs the largest airline in Europe, Ryanair, and if he was to run as a politician, you look him up later. He is one of the most savvy business leaders. Leaders. I mean, this guy knows. Like, the thing is, he's so wealthy. Would he ever even enter into politics? That's the sad thing.
Well,
But
that's what
he,
Trump is. Trump. I bet a lot of people were wondering the same thing about Trump.
yeah, well, Trump isn't really wealthy. He's
He's
just,
wealthy.
he dig under it. Like
Okay.
he's got the thing is he's got brains. He's got brains, and he's able to manage his businesses well. He hasn't, but he's leveraged. If you look at his businesses are leveraged a lot on
Debt.
debt. Yeah, so he's very good at managing his businesses. I mean, he hasn't gone bust just yet. But what is his actual net wealth would be an interesting thing.
That would be
Um,
interesting.
it's like Tim what's it, Tim Cook. He's probably wealthier in real sense than Donald Trump.
Oh, definitely.
Do you
Is
know?
is
And
Michael O'Leary Catholic?
yes, his son and my son were confirmed together in the same church on the same
Okay.
day.
Well, okay. Are you gonna then tell him to run?
Oh, I mean, would love to. He's just.
He can
Would
be
he?
like, son, here's
I,
here
I,
here's the
I, I, I,
businesses,
I'd
and
love
now
to
I'm
see
gonna
it.
run.
I could easily get elected. I'd love to see him to run. He's
What
highly capable. But
what if Conor McGregor endorsed him?
I don't know. I don't know if
Well, I'm just
I
saying,
don't
like
know.
that would be, see, this
Yeah,
is what I'm saying about like
yeah,
this is kind of how thinking,
yeah,
could
yeah.
go.
I don't like Conor McGregor at all. I don't hold him up as a
Okay.
role model, because there's this fake machismo thing. I have to look buff and act tough. What's a real man at the and this whole debate. The womanizer or the. Do you know what I mean? This is
But
the.
if you want to get elected, this is what I'm talking.
Yeah, I know. If
This
you
is
want to
this
get.
this is real politics, Robert.
Yeah.
If you want to change Ireland, if you want Ireland to not die, you got to,
Well,
maybe
yeah. I mean,
this is
I
the path.
I don't know what some people's impressions of Ireland are abroad, but the impressions of Ireland that we're living here, it is a very, very, very stable economy, stable country. I mean, you do see some of these headlines popping up, but on the ground, where I live 20 years, we don't lock our door.
Well,
You know,
that's I'm glad that it feels that way. I just think that from what I understand is that you guys are moving towards where Britain is right now,
yes, yeah, it
faster
would,
than they did.
yeah,
And, if you want to stop that, you got to think proactively
yeah.
instead of
The
let
only,
it happen and then you're like, "Oh, but things all went to crap. What am I going to do
yeah,
now?" Well, now
yeah,
you missed out. You got to step up and be like, "No, we don't want to do this."
yeah,
So,
yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, but look, it's going to be. Like immigration, it has to be tackled responsibly. Every country is realizing this. Otherwise, you end up with you're going to end up with ghettos. I mean, people that don't integrate, don't want to integrate, and then there's misunderstandings where people don't, there's them and us. So that's what my fear is. There's whole streets in Dublin, and I say this, people will know this. There's whole streets in Dublin where there's one ethnicity there. It's completely as if you walked into a different country. And
Yeah.
people will know what I'm talking about, and for their good, not just for their good. i- Is this going to help them, and is this going to help us? There could be enriching immigration, and then there can be problematic immigration. And I think there should be some level-headed thought on this, without saying you're xenophobic or you're anti this or anti that. No, there's some legitimate concerns. I don't think, and they have to be addressed carefully.
Well,
I've
it's kind of like in Chicago. It's like in Chicago, they're now gonna build basically a tent city for migrants, and I'm like, that like migrants probably actually had it, like they could have had houses, like
Yeah,
in wherever they were from. Like it's not like everybody who comes is just homeless. So
yeah,
basically, you're actually setting them up for a worse life
yeah,
to be the homeless or the the worst
yeah,
off in America versus what they could be. They may not be the worst off in whatever country they originally came from. I mean, this is the problem with the American dream, is like telling people that if you come here everything's going to work out. Well, that's just false.
yeah, yeah. No,
So
it's true. Yeah,
if
I
you
mean,
tell that
and
to people about every other country, the same thing will happen. It's
yeah,
not, and then they'll be resentful, and then you basically screwed over everybody, not
yeah,
just the people that are already there, who their neighborhoods are going to be worse off, but also the people that you bring.
yeah, yeah. Well, like I suppose I'm going to dial it back to to a Catholic point of view here in this discussion, because you can look at it on the political side, but you also have to look at it on the Catholic side. That every person is created in the likeness and image of God, and is an opportunity. When I encounter them, there's an opportunity for me to give them the gospel. And you know we have to look for their good as well as our good. And sometimes uh, encouraging them to move? Is it always going to be for their good? Because what has happened, Connor, is with a lot of immigration, you see a lot of, especially a lot of the best talented people moving, legally moving, but you also see this drain of talent from other countries.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially in Africa, you see a lot of excellently educated doctors, that have the creme de la creme of African doctors, and they end up in America, and they end up in Europe, and they end up, and God love them. You have to admire their tenacity and their ability and their work to because they legally move to these other countries. But we're also draining all of these other countries of the people that they need to grow. And so this is what we have to be asking. It, on a common sense level, are we helping the third world, or Latin America, or Asia, or America, by soaking up from both ends
Hmm.
all of this? I actually don't think that we're actually doing that. The Africa is getting more and more and more impoverished, intellectually, because anybody that can will leave. Especially if you're at one end of education. So America lives on the talent of other nations, and so does Europe in many ways. And I would just throw this back and say, look, are we helping these countries by actually taking their most valuable resources, which are their people? I mean,
Yeah, and also, not to mention, everybody has an obligation to the country that they're born in.
yeah.
Like, it might be actually a problem, not just for those countries, but for the people that are leaving, because they have a responsibility to, if they can, make their country better.
Yeah, but we also have to, as Catholics, remember that people have a responsibility to ensure that their family are maintained, and that may require them moving.
Yeah, that's
There's a
more of it.
moral obligation. There's a
There are
moral
two
obligation.
sides of that.
Yeah,
There's
yeah. If there's nothing morally wrong with ever leaving your country looking for a better life somewhere else.
Well, not
That's Catholic teaching.
not always, but there is some devotion, some responsibility to where God placed you.
There is some responsibility, but that sometimes you are morally obliged to provide for your family. That is the obligation of, especially of a man. You're morally obliged to provide for your wife and children, whatever way you can. And sometimes that morally requires you to leave your country.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just stating the obvious. Like, if a million people hadn't left Ireland during the famine, they would have died.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
yeah.
But
So
also
when you have,
that,
yeah,
yeah, exactly.
and
No,
there is
that's true.
there,
It's a balance.
and as somebody that has worked around the world, and I've driven in Africa, and I've worked in Africa. I mean, there is real poverty.
Well,
There's
yeah, and
poverty. Yeah,
also, I don't know if I've heard people say this. I don't know if it's true. You might have a better knowledge of it than I do. Is that um, we need to ha- get we need to help the
yeah,
third world provide for itself, instead of
yeah.
just providing for it, ensuring that it remains impoverished.
And the best way to help the third world provide for ourselves is to offer ourselves to live in those countries.
Interesting.
Is to go there. Is to go there, to actually go and help them where they are. To go and be a teacher for 1 year. To go and be an engineer for 1 year, to go and build a well, or to actually be there on the ground with these people. I
Yeah,
mean,
did you see there was a popular YouTuber that built wells in Africa?
yeah,
Did you hear about that?
yeah, I did that as well.
Oh,
I
you
just
did?
I did that. Yeah, look, I'll just show you the this is the well. This is the well that I did last year.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
Robert Nugent, you've transformed the lives. Now, it's not bloating my ego. This is the inspiration. This is the grace. This is God's grace. This is actually what God does.
Mhm.
Because people that follow if people subscribe to my channel, I just send them money to Africa because I don't need the money. But I said, look, I do if I can do something. So like the channel built a well, like the channel, grace
That's
of God.
beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, and if we did this, if we spent, if every, I mean, if we just spent our life like and transforming the life of one family or one town or something like this, these people wouldn't have to leave. They wouldn't feel like they have to leave. But when you're in and I mean 20% of our food in Europe is thrown in the bin. It's food waste. I mean, on one side, we are throwing away 20% of our food in Europe, and on the other side, we have a continent that in some locations struggle to get water. I mean, we could do more. I mean, this is the whole base of Christianity, or the whole base of what Christ is. The core of Christianity. We encounter Christ, we're transformed by Christ, and we do what Christ did, because Christ went out, he fed people, he cured people, he touched people, he helped people. That's the core of Christianity. That's really, if we're not doing that, we're not. That is the doing part of Christianity. And if all of our Catholic groups in America and Europe and all, if we claim to be Catholic, if we all got together and transformed the lives of all of these countries, because I've lived in them, I've lived in Mexico. So when I hear this debate about Mexicans this and Mexicans that, I mean, Mexico for me was my home. I lived there. My home. They're my friends. I speak the language. I spent 20 years traveling to that country with friends and stuff like this. So I've lived in these countries, and in a business side, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
we our work, for example, we filled 3 containers with food and clothes and stuff, and we sent them to a certain African country from our, and they sent us back, thank you for this. We could do more with our politics and our rhetoric. In trying to, people are looking at the effect of immigration. Most people don't want to leave their country. I mean, I know the Irish never wanted to leave their country for America. People don't realize this. The Irish never, they missed their country. I mean, my parents were Canadian. I'm Canadian citizen, and people don't realize this. I got Canadian citizenship from my father because he had to immigrate and went to America. But his heart was always in Ireland. And
Yeah.
this is what. So if we transform these countries with ourselves, and stop draining them of their intellectual resources, they would be transformed countries. Um,
Well,
yeah,
first we need to destroy the CIA.
yeah.
That see,
Look,
that's
I'm not going to get the American side.
no,
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. But like America is responsible generally for Latin American
yeah,
uh collapse. So I mean, you reap what you sow.
yeah.
So I mean, really, the immigration problem on that side of things, though it's not really Mexicans coming, anyways. That's not really. I believe that
No, but
it's Central
yeah,
American. But the point is, you're right. You're right. There is much to do, but the problem is, at least from my perspective, the government the government generally just gives money to other governments, and then that government then you know
yeah,
does absolutely nothing with it, or just pay gives their uh what's the word, petty corruption kind of,
yeah,
you know
yeah,
so it because this was a big deal, like the guy, that the big YouTuber, he was accused of making the government of that country look bad
yeah,
by providing wells.
yeah. That's
So
true.
like, I mean,
That's life.
but like, as if that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
So
No,
like,
you have to be diplomatic and just say, look, we're here to help you build infrastructure.
well,
I
no, I
mean,
mean these people were just like, somebody wanted to get like famous by
yeah,
complaining about the guy who builds wells. I mean, this guy didn't build anything. He's just
yeah,
some
yeah,
politician. But the point is it's so bizarre. It's this is the corruption of, well, the person of the soul, in order,
yeah,
which brings down anybody's attempt to do this. But also,
yeah.
on another level, we do have to understand that basically poverty is not going to go away. Like, we're never like this. This is not our home. This is not. We have our eternal home.
It's true the poverty will never go away, but neither should our ability to tend the poor ever go away. And
Yes.
and many times, I mean, this is the sad reality of Catholicism today, that the core of Christianity, the core of Christianity is encountering Christ in the Eucharist, in our worship, but to be able to also go and feed the Christ that's in the other. Whatever you've done to the least of these, you've done to me. And we're treating the the Christ in the other with utter contempt and disrespect so many times as Catholics. That is the simple reality. Even the other that shares the same religion as us. I mean, I'll give you an example. When I was working in Atlanta, I would go to mass, and I would go to an SSPX mass in Roswell, just outside Atlanta. But I'd also go to the Novus Ordo Spanish mass. There were mainly Spaniards or Spanish Latinos that were in caravan camps or caravan places. So you're seeing in the same place, you're seeing completely two different populations that are Catholic, and one. I mean, nothing against the SSPX, the nicest people, nice, like genuinely the nicest Americans you could meet. A lovely chapel, lovely worship, and I like that mass. That's I like to be able to pray a traditional Latin mass. I just find it just helps. It's a beautiful prayer, it's a beautiful meditation, and I know the liturgy and I like the liturgy. But I'm also seeing a totally segregated, different population in the same area going to a different mass. And do you know what? It's just, these are you're all baptized Catholics. You're all baptized Catholics, and one side, you have a level of the population there suffering with healthcare, because in America it's very difficult sometimes to get healthcare if you don't have insurance. And a lot of these guys, suffering with their families at home in Mexico, so they're on, working in America and sending wages home to other people. So it was just interesting for me to see the dynamics at play in the Atlanta area, and then to go down to 5 points. I remember going down, taking the Marta down to 5 points in Atlanta, and to see people walking around in with blankets on the street. I remember going back in and telling my work colleagues, oh, well, I went on the weekend. Well, I went to the oldest church in Atlanta. It's there in the center. And I just took the Marta in, and I mean, even a policeman, he pulled me up and he said, "Really, you shouldn't be walking here." I said, "Well, what's wrong? Sure, this is the center of Atlanta." Yeah, but and I vividly remember being on the Marta, and I was literally the only white person on. I mean, I'm just saying this.
Hmm.
And I walked into this African American festival in Atlanta on the day. It was in February at the time. And I was literally the only white person. There was thousands of people there, but I was the only white person in that festival. Now, I think I looked like out of place, completely out of place. And then one black person came up to me, and he stood beside me and says, "No, do you know what? You don't mind if I stay with you, because I don't think you should be here." And I said, "I don't understand. Like, I'm just an Irish guy, experiencing us Europeans. When we travel around Europe, we go to the city centers of all of our cities. It's just the thing you do. So
Yeah.
you don't do it in certain places in Atlanta." But nothing happened to me. Nothing happened to me, and I
Oh,
enjoyed the
good.
festival,
I'm
and I
glad you're
enjoyed,
alive.
and I took photos, and I went to the Baptist church afterwards and to see how they worship and all that. And look, but like, I just thought, I just thought, at the end of the day, we have to get together and talk to each other. We have to get together and look each other in the face, and to in a sense, even though we'll never be able to do it as Mother Teresa be able to do it, but actually be able to go out and touch the other person in their heart and say, look, you're a beloved child of God, and I'd love to know you more. And can I help you in some way? Is there something that I can do for you? Is there something, I think America is amazing in many ways. It really is. I've lots of American friends, but it's a challenge in others. And I
Honestly,
love it. Really is a challenge. If you
it's an
think, even think
incredible
of
challenge.
it is, if you think of American Catholicism, you know, in the all the divisions and polarizations, and I'm there just thinking, you do understand that the whole essence, the whole reason we go to a mass or a traditional at mass is we're fed by Christ. He comes into us, he feeds our soul. That he lends us his heart. He is lending us a heart for us to be able to love somebody else. The way he loved us, it's like you have to embody him, and you have to use his spirit and his wisdom to go out and love some. If we lived like Christ, if you just think about um, if Americans lived like Christ, I'm not judging them or anything like that. I'm just saying, if every American Catholic lived like Christ, just took that principle, fed by Christ, lived by Christ, not only would American Catholicism take over America, it would take over the world. It
Well,
would take
that
over the.
that's but 70% of American Catholics would have to realize that you actually are fed by Christ at mass.
But do
Or
traditional Catholics actually understand that they're actually being fed by Christ, or
I mean, by
do they? I
uh
know they say they believe this is the body, blood, soul, and divinity, but if it is the body, blood, soul, and divinity, do you understand that body, blood, soul, and divinity is coming to you to feed you to be another Christ? Like Christ feeds us so that we think and act like him. We would never, we would, we, it would ultimately drive you to be the Saint Charles Foucault or Teresa, I mean Francis of Assisi, or the Teresa of Calcutta, or all of these other saints that gave their life for Christ. If you think about it, I
I
mean,
mean, yeah, also all saints had different vocations. Like
but if we just did it to one person, we don't have to do it. If every American Catholic did it to one person that isn't in their circle, so that isn't the people that they like. If you went out, if every, I mean, I'm thinking about Atlanta. If every Catholic in Atlanta went out outside their little community, so if
there aren't
all
that
of
many
the,
Catholics in Atlanta, but but
oh,
yes,
there's a
n-
lot.
not
But
by comparison, but
if
yeah,
if all if all of the Roswell SSBX Catholics actually went to the Spanish Mass one day, if all of them en masse went to the Spanish Mass one day and actually looked the Catholics, the baptized Catholics, the same church, and actually
sure.
looked that other community in the face, maybe invited them out for a meal, what would happen in Atlanta?
I
Just
have
think
no
about it.
idea.
I mean,
I
I've done.
really don't know.
I would just love
Well, if you're
for
interested,
even.
my parish Latin mass is basically half a little
I
less than
know.
half Hispanic, half
It is. I know. And I've seen even the SSPX. You see a mixture in there, and to be honest, and I'm not in any way criticizing, because they are beautiful communities, and it's great to see that the families, and it is a beautiful community. I mean, it's just a joy to go there, and but
I think what's happening though is just that everybody's been so many people have been starved
yeah.
uh of of the first part that it might take a little bit till the second part comes.
I know, but I mean, we're utterly failing Christ in the Eucharist. I mean, we're utterly failing that encounter with Christ. we are really failing as Catholics in this fight among ourselves, because this is what we're doing. We're spending time fighting between ourselves. We're actually failing to evangelize, and it doesn't. And we're pointing fingers at bishops and Rome and at this, and we're not pointing the finger at ourselves. Like if you think of your own work, Connor, is you've decided to get up, to blog, to put your face out there. You've decided to, to challenge yourself in your life. And some people could have said, "No, I could have done this." You've put that optimism forward. You're doing real evangelization. If you think about it, you're reaching thousands of people. If everybody did this, what you're doing with what God has given you, what could we do?
Yeah. No, yeah,
I'm just saying.
you're right. You're right. You're right.
You're,
And
you're giving you're giving that message that you need to give. You're
I think
challenging.
my problem is I'm thinking of like how I would do that, and and if you're right, then I am doing something like that at the
You are.
moment. Okay, because
You are.
but yes, no, and because like not everybody's can go to Africa, not
No,
everybody can go into the inner city. People have to
correct.
do that. That's
Yeah.
true. You're right. You're right. But
But you
everybody,
are but you are
everybody has to
arriving to the inner
challenge
city.
themselves.
You are arriving to the inner city.
Well,
You
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 know what
don't
I
you
mean.
may you may not think you are, but your prayer, your witness, you are arriving to places you didn't think you'd go.
Let me know in the comments if you get this far in this video. Just let me know where you got, like what country, where you're from, you know,
Yeah.
if you have any story to tell, leave it in the comments.
Yeah.
Um,
I,
Robert,
I I I wanted to drive a debate because if we all agree on everything, we need a debate, guys, here.
wait, you're purposely picking fights? Is that what you're doing?
No, I never do that.
Oh, Robert, it's been a wonderful time talking to you.
It's been an
Um,
absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed it. I
I,
really enjoyed it.
I'm glad. So everybody, if you're not aware of Robert's channel, check out DeCrevy, Determined to be Catholic. I will have links in the description. You can follow Robert on Twitter as well, or X now. Uh, I I'll always be like Twitter X. I'll always call it like Twitter X because like to just call it X it seems wrong
Yeah.
sometimes. But anything to plug, Robert?
No, I would just encourage people to support your channel, Connor. I think you're creating a space, you're growing into it, and I honestly see you as a motivator and a speaker. That's where I see you growing into the next couple of years. So I'm just hoping that you get more exposure to interviewing people because I do enjoy it, and I think this is we need to support each other, in our different with our different gifts and our different abilities. Everybody's been given what God has given us, and I think it's important to support each other in that effort. I'm excited to see where you're going. I'm looking forward to the
Me too.
book. I want to see the book.
Thank you, Robert. Well, thank
No
you,
problem.
everyone. Or if you want to support the channel, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Join our Discord to keep up with videos. And thank you all for watching, and God bless. Bye.